Alright, what's up everyone? I'm just gonna briefly go over the Elden Ring Soulsborne tier list ranking that I pretty much just kind of threw together in the last like 25 minutes just to kind of kill some time. I do hope everyone's having a great day. I'm basically just gonna rank all of the Soulsborne or Soulsborne-like games that have released thus far. This list will not include Demon Souls because I've yet to play that title and probably never will. In its place, I have included Code Vein and Neo 2 to kind of bridge that gap, just to kind of add some quantity to this list as well. I've also removed the D list or whatever ranking because I feel like all of these titles are at least a C or above. I mean, they're overall good titles to own or at least play. So I guess with all that being said, let's just briefly go through this list of amazing Soulsborne-like games. And the first one we'll start out with will be Dark Souls 1, which was released back in 2011 on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. I feel like this game really did put From Software on the map. I know with Demon Souls, it didn't catch on right away after release, but then eventually word of mouth kind of did go catch on and people started playing the title a lot more. But I feel like Dark Souls 1 really did put them on the map. I feel like they understood their niche. We pretty much understood what they were going for, and it was definitely different at the time where a lot of titles were more akin to like go to said destination or they tell you where to go and things like that, whereas Dark Souls you pretty much had to figure everything out and it was a giant puzzle, and a lot of us loved it for that. I loved the game. It was actually my first Soulsborne game that I've played. Strong level design. I cannot complain. I know a lot of people do not like Blighttown. I actually do not mind Blighttown. I know the lag really did mess up Blighttown back when it first released. I know with the remaster release that's pretty much alleviated right now, but overall Dark Souls 1 had some great environments, had great bosses from Ornstein and Smo up until even the Stray Demon wasn't that bad. I know we all hate Bed of Chaos. I admit I do too. And I mean, honestly, I feel like the game is challenging enough. Sense Fortress was great. Seat the Scaleless was alright. I mean, it just had a number of great bosses. The Painted World of Ariamis, the final boss, Gwen, Lord of Cinder. Once again, an amazing title. You had a plethora of customization. You can pretty much build whatever build you want. I feel like the game it played really well at the time. I know it's probably aged quite a bit, but I still feel like the title is very strong. I would probably rank this title in the end, and not just because it's my first title that I played, but I will still put this in S tier. I feel like Dark Souls is a near masterpiece, regardless of everyone's opinion. The next game that we'll look at will be Dark Souls 2. Which I know a lot of people consider the black sheep of the franchise. It was developed by From Software's B team. Funnily, it's actually the only rated T for teen game that's on this list. I guess they kind of cut down a bit on the gore. They tried to make it more accessible to anyone. Oh yeah, and I meant to throw in that this title was released back in 2014 for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Probably one of the later 7th gen titles to release at the time. But overall, for Dark Souls 2, regardless of, where it stands at in the community, I enjoy the title. I put a lot of hours into the title. It's actually a pretty long game, longer than Dark Souls 1. Unfortunately, I feel there's some bloating in the game, I'll admit. Some areas just went on a bit longer than wanted. Some of the level design probably was not up to par with the original Dark Souls. A lot of it was just kind of bland and boring. Some were a bit captivating. The gutter wasn't that bad to navigate. The Black Gulch was pretty hectic at times. Shrine of Amana was a pain. We all can agree to that. But overall, Dark Souls 2, it introduced a lot of builds that you could utilize and introduced a lot of weapons. Power stancing was a thing at the time. I feel like the customization definitely improved over Dark Souls 1. The movement did feel a bit janky in Dark Souls 2, I guess because it has an 8-way movement system to where your character can only face in like 8 directions, which felt pretty weird. So the movement did feel a bit janky if you compare it to the first title. But overall, Dark Souls 2 is still a great game. It has some strong DLC. I actually feel like the DLC is a bit stronger than the first game. I actually haven't played Dark Souls 1's DLC, so I can't even really touch on that. But Dark Souls 2's was amazing. The Crown of the Sunken King, the Crown of the Ivory King, and the Crown of the Iron King. So I feel Dark Souls 2 really did add enough substantial content, I feel like you would get your money's worth from the title. As far as bosses are concerned, they are okay. They have more bosses than the first game. They have like at least 30 or so, probably around 40. But some bosses are pretty good. Old Dragon Slayer is pretty good. Who else is? We have. I know a lot of people do not like the old Iron King. He was okay. Smelter Demon was hard. We just. Who else? There were. Like I said, there was quite a bit number of bosses in there. Since I can't even remember half of them, that pretty much means that a lot of them were a bit forgettable. Pursuer was what it was. The last giant was typical giant. So a lot of the bosses were a bit forgettable, especially compared to the first game. But overall, there were still some quality bosses in there. If I were to rate Dark Souls 2, though, I would put it in the B tier. Overall, like I said, it's a meaty experience. I still recommend the title. I put so many hours into the title, but I just can't say it's better than the first game. And then now let's move over to Bloodborne, which honestly I feel is an overrated title, but I understand the love for the title. It came out back in 2015 on the PlayStation 4. It's a bloody and gruesome game, as the title suggests. Basically, this takes place, I would say, in somewhat of a Victorian, Londonish kind of period. So definitely the time frame takes place a lot later than the Dark Souls title, since with it not being in medieval times. But it's a gruesome game. It's a very hard game. Builds are a bit limited. They've taken away a lot of systems, of course, that were in the Dark Souls games. You don't really, there is a shield in the game, but the game caters more for offense. Heals are limited to blood vials. To recover your health, if you take damage, you need to quickly gain a couple of attacks on your foes to regain lost health. Overall, though, Bloodborne had strong level design. I was not a fan of some of the bosses. Vicar Amelia was a great boss, but I just feel like the game had an abundance of just large, big bosses. I'm just like, okay, I just want to fight like, decent size, or like some humanoid bosses, which were in the DLC, such as Maria, which was an awesome, amazing boss fight. But a lot of the bosses in here, like Margot's Wet Nurse, even the final boss of the game, not Gurman. Gurman was good, but the one after him, I think it's the Moon Phase or something like that, they were just a bit weak for me. Like Bloodborne, several of the bosses were just hit or miss for me, so I wasn't really too keen on a lot of the bosses in the game, wasn't really too big of a fan. But as far as the level design, it definitely nailed it. The forest area was great. Yharnam is great. You can get lost in Yharnam, but I know I did when I first played the game, but I didn't mind. It was a joy to navigate. But yeah, other than that, Bloodborne is still a strong title. I wish we could get a remaster. I know a lot of people love this title. I just hear like nothing but praise and praise and praise for it. I mean, I guess it kind of does deserve it, but like I said, I still feel like it can be a bit of an overrated title, but it's still, I still feel like it's very captivating and strong, and I would probably put this title up into the, I guess maybe the A tier ranking. Do I want to put it there or S? That's, I guess right now, let's go right ahead and put Bloodborne in A tier, only because I can't. In Bloodborne, there is replayability, and forgot to mention there are chalice dungeons in there, which are randomly generated dungeons, but overall I just feel like build quantity is a bit lacking compared to a lot of the other Souls titles, but it's still a very fun game to go through. The weapons are still great, and ultimately I still recommend it, just like all of the games on this list. Now let's move on to Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3. I love this game, but then at the same time I feel like this game should have had more. If we go through like howlongtobeat.com, or even just when I even completed all three games, I felt like Dark Souls 3 was the shortest Dark Souls game, and that was a bit of a letdown for me. Dark Souls 3 did release in 2016 on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, along with PC. I still feel it's a great title. They definitely improved the gameplay. It plays a lot better than Dark Souls 2. It functions kind of similar to Bloodborne in a way now. The game is actually, you can actually play at 60 frames per second if you have current generation consoles such as PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, and also if you have a beefy PC. I still love Dark Souls 3. I feel like I just feel like the level design is just not as strong as like the previous two titles. It's better than, well, let me rephrase that. It's better than 2 because 2 did have some BS levels. But compared to Dark Souls 1, I feel like it's not as strong. A lot of the levels are linear. Dark Souls 3 is a pretty linear game overall. I would also say it's probably the easiest on here. I remember I went through my last playthrough without dying to a single boss and completely defeating them on the first try. That was probably my third playthrough, but I just quickly understood the game that, a lot better than my previous 2 playthroughs. But overall, Dark Souls 3 is still a very fun game to play. I enjoy the soundtrack. Soundtrack's not as good as Dark Souls 2. I did mention that Dark Souls 2 does have the best soundtrack in the series of Dark Souls games. But Dark Souls 3 soundtrack is still great. The bosses are a step up, however. There are 19 bosses in the base game. I feel like overall, the majority of them are really fun to fight. I enjoy Dragon Slayer armor, the final boss, Soul of Cinder, Nameless King, Pontiff Sullivan, who I like to call Pontiff Duchelin. He's a fun boss to fight, pretty tough, but overall, I still enjoy most of the bosses. I know everyone has their opinions on the Ancient Dragon, the Crystal Sage, they could have been better, Deacons of the Deep, but for the most part, the bosses in this game were pretty strong. The DLC, the first DLC, I think it was Ashes of Ariandel, was okay, very short. It did have a great boss fight. I forgot, against the lady, I forgot her name. I know she was hard, but it was a captivating boss fight. But then the Ring City DLC, which was the final DLC for the Dark Souls series release, and it was pretty much a step up over Ashes of Ariandel. I still feel both DLCs pale in comparison to Dark Souls 2's meaty DLCs, but Ring City was still pretty great. It had some great bosses, such as the Dragon Madeir. I forgot the final boss, who was that knight person, the Slave Knight or something like that. I think that's his name. He was a great send-off, though. Great final boss fight. DLC was a step up in difficulty compared to the base game. Like I said, overall, I enjoyed the title a lot. I still do not feel like it's as good as Dark Souls 1. But I would rate this game above Bloodborne, however. So in the end, I would still put this game in the S tier category, but right behind Dark Souls 1. Yeah. I just feel like the game, just the level design just not being strong enough. And even though the bosses are great and all, I just feel like Dark Souls 1, with that game having a bit more bosses, and a lot of them are a lot better, with the exception of like Bed of Chaos, I just feel like Dark Souls takes it over Dark Souls 3. Now let's move over to Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. This was released back in 2019, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Sekiro is brutal, it's hard. I've only completed this game once. I have no desire to go back to it ever again. Overall, still a very great game. I enjoy the game regardless. However, this game forces you to play as basically one build. I mean, you can unlock like different skills to use for the character. I think his name is Wolf, but he's mostly just equipped with his sword. And basically your boss fights come down to parrying attacks and things like that. But overall, it's a great game. They tried with the story. They tried to put the story as the forefront in this title, whereas versus a lot of the Dark Souls games and Bloodborne, you kind of have to find your story more in the back end through item descriptions and things like that. Sekiro's story, to be honest, wasn't really all that. It did have some cool characters. I enjoyed Emma. Her boss fight was great. Well, no. I've seen her boss fight. I actually have never fought her, to be honest with you. I'm gonna lie, because I didn't go down that route. I actually went down the other ending route, where I defeated Ishin Ashura, whatever his name was, which was a really good boss fight. But yeah, a lot of the bosses were challenging. You really have to master parrying and deflecting in this game, which is through the either LB button if you're on Xbox or the L1 button if you're on PlayStation. You have to master parrying in order to get through this game, and then find your opponent's weak spots and go right ahead and go for the kill. But overall, I feel the game is just really tough. Since you're forced to play as one build, you can't really experiment too much. You can perform some cheese strategies on some of the bosses, but a lot of these bosses were really tough. I remember them, but I forgot their names, only because it's been like probably 3 years since I played the title now. I still remember it though, but Yeah, really challenging game, but it's still really worth it in the end. The length is still really good. The environments were really good in this game. I actually did like the level design in Sekiro. Still a very fun game, and you can. This is actually the first game where you can actually jump with a button that they created too. It's not a JRPG; it's more so an action adventure game. So I don't think you'll really get too much replayability out of Sekiro. There's still new game pluses if you're into that, just like the other games. But I think more often than not, after your first two playthroughs, will probably be pretty much done with this game. Like I said, there are different endings. I know there are two main branches that you can go. I've only done the main true ending, and I really have no desire to go back just because this game really took a lot out of me. But overall, I still recommend Sekiro. It's a very fluid game. You're basically playing as a ninja samurai, and I feel like it plays really well. So I will put this game in B tier, right in front of Dark Souls 2, only because it plays so much better than Dark Souls 2. And then let's move over to Code Vein. Code Vein came out in 2019, I would say September, something of that time. Came out on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Code Vein is okay. Honestly, From Software had nothing to do with it. This was more of Bandai Namco and the God Eater team kind of developing this game. They basically were trying to replicate what From Software does, as far as how they make these titles. I feel Code Vein was a decent experiment. It's more so anime Souls. You can create your own character. I feel like the customization is very limited, just like a lot of the other Souls games. Let me rephrase that. When you're making your character, you have a lot of options as far as accessories, hairstyles, eyes, and all of that jazz and things like that. But when it comes to like applying outfits to your character, those are very limited. There are certain things called armors in the game. I think they're called like veils or something like that. It's been like probably 2.5 years since I played the title. I have beaten it like around 4 times. There are 4 different endings in the game. But you basically you create your own character, and you'll always have a selection of partners to choose from to navigate the game. The level design is pretty weak compared to a lot of the other titles. They're just pretty barren landscapes. It takes place in a post-apocalyptic world. There are builds in the game. You can play as like casters. Close range combat is available as well. You can use swords, spears, and things like that. It's still a fun game to play. I just feel like it's not on the levels like a lot of the other Souls games. I commend Bandai Namco for what they've tried with this title. The bosses, some are actually pretty good. The final boss wasn't really all that great. A lot of these bosses, to be honest with you, are a bit forgettable because I actually forgot like the majority of their names. There are a lot of knights I know that you fight in the game. Some are still pretty good, but overall I wouldn't really recommend it. I don't even think the soundtrack in this game is really all that. There are probably like a few good songs that I liked. So overall, Code Vein is still a worthy game to pick up and play. I just recommend getting it on like a discount or a sale. It wasn't a title that I definitely went into trying to purchase day one. But overall, if you want that anime fix, I mean, the game will probably take you, if you're trying to go for all the endings, I mean, you're at least looking at like 60 hours of content for sure. If you want to get that anime fix, it's still a fun time. I mean, I played this game during lockdown 2 years ago, and I had I had some fun with it. Let's just put it that way. But overall, ultimately, I'll probably have to put this game in the C category. Alright, we're down to 2 more titles. We have Nioh 2 and Elden Ring. Alright, so let's start with Nioh 2, which came out in March of 2020 for PlayStation 4, and then it eventually released on PC, and then came out a year later on... Well, let me rephrase that. It came out a year later on PC as well as PlayStation 5 as the remastered version. Nioh 2 is an amazing game. This was not developed by From Software either. This is developed by that developer, Koei Tecmo. Well, actually Team Ninja, I should say, of the Koei Tecmo branch. But this was developed by Team Ninja, and I believe Sony published it in Japan, whereas Sony published it in America, whereas Koei Tecmo published it in Japan, I believe. But ultimately, I mean, we all know Nioh. Nioh 2, fantastic game. It is brutal, but once you get it, it clicks. Nioh 2 works. You have plenty of builds. On the base game, you have 9 weapons to select from. I know Neo 2 is one of those titles that definitely benefits from DLC. That's actually one thing I did not like. As far as unlocking further New Game Plus options, you did have to purchase the DLCs. I know they've done that with the first game as well. I haven't played the first game, so that's why it's not on this list. But I just feel like unlocking New Game Plus, it should have been in the base game, but at this point it is what it is. I know we have one New Game Plus option, Dream of the Strong, but then for the other ones like Dream of the Neo, Dream of the Demon, we have to have the other 3 DLCs or so. But overall, if we're just counting the base game, Neo 2, you will still get plenty of hours out of this game, at least 100 hours if you're trying to like master everything. The weapon sets they function differently. You can build your build however way you want. You can focus on magic, focus on offense. They have different stats for you to build up, just like from software titles. I'm doing a magic build actually right now because I just pretty much picked the game back up again and having a blast with it. The character creator is really good. I think it's probably one of the best character creators in a game, especially in a Souls-like game. But Neo 2, fantastic game. Bosses are brutal, but once you learn their patterns, they become, in the end, it starts becoming second nature. I don't really have too much to add to this one. The story, again, they try to paint more towards the forefront. It's not really that great of a story. It focuses on the Sengoku period with Oda Nobunaga, Akechi Mitsuhide, Lady Nohime, Oichi, and all of them, Shibata Katsue. It does what it does, but ultimately, I mean, a lot of us just go into these games for gameplay anyway. Level design is okay. One difference from Neo, from the other Souls games, to differentiate itself, they actually have segmented mission-like levels, so a lot of the levels are not interconnected as all of the other Soulsborne games that are on this list. So basically, every level that you play is basically tied to a mission, and at the end of said mission, you unlock rewards and things like that. But like I said, the bosses, they're brutal, but they're very fun to fight. Shibata Katsue is brutal, probably my toughest boss in the game to defeat. You have others to fight. I know there's like this giant owl, forgot his name, starts with a T, cannot pronounce it. You have the snake too. A lot of these boss names I just can't pronounce all that well. Final boss was pretty good. But yeah, ultimately, I recommend Neo 2. Even after the game is done, you can go right into your first New Game Plus. But again, just keep in mind to unlock the other New Game Plus options, you will need the DLC. The game does benefit a lot from the DLC for extra areas that you can go through, extra weapons that you can acquire. But the base game is still good on its own as well. I mean, you have a lot of content to work with, especially playing online and things like that. But ultimately, I would put Neo 2. I would put it in the S tier, right in front of Dark Souls 3. And now that I think about it, regarding Dark Souls 3, I'm going to move this down to the... I just changed my mind a little bit. This is live, by the way, so this wasn't even pre-planned. So you guys shouldn't even be mad at me for this, but I'm going to move Dark Souls 3 in front of Bloodborne because I did enjoy the game over Bloodborne a bit more, mainly because I had a lot more build variety in the game. So I'm going to put this in the A tier in front of Bloodborne. And the last title that we need to talk about, Elden Ring. Elden Ring is a masterpiece, hands down. We already know it is. Story is great, with the collaboration of George R.R. Martin. Although, I feel like it's not perfect, but it's good for what it is. There are a lot of characters with similar names in this game, such as Margot, Margit, all of that. Mikola, Melania, America. So just try not to get everyone confused. Melina. But yeah, Elden Ring. From Software's first open world title. Sekiro was not open world. It did have vast environments, but Elden Ring was definitely true open world. It's probably not the largest open world you ever play in a video game, but it's still large enough. You actually have an overworld and several underworld areas as well to go through. But Elden Ring, your builds are there. The character creator could probably use some work, as a lot of these titles. That's pretty much the weak point for a lot of these other titles, and I wish for Elden Ring that they would have improved upon it, but I was sadly disappointed with how my character turned out. I just feel like From Software could have handled the character creator a bit better, especially on their, 6th or 7th game now, so I was really looking forward to that, but unfortunately that was a bit of a miss. But other than that, Like I said, build variety is there, weapon variety is there. You have some great weapons to use. I know you have like the lightsaber looking weapon, the dual lightsaber looking weapon that you can wield. You have daggers, claws, swords, shields. You had a shield that could shoot beams of light, but I think that got patched. But you have spears. A lot of that stuff is great. Elden Ring overall is an amazing title though. Bosses are great. You have so many bosses. They are not, however, as great as the bosses are. I wouldn't say that they're not. Some of like the best bosses in this game do not reach the quality of some of the ones you'll see in like Dark Souls 1 or Dark Souls 3. The ones that are here are still great. The final boss was okay-ish. Even the one before the final boss was alright. However, the one, I'm trying to think. We already know the one BS boss in the desert. Not gonna try to make any spoilers yet. That boss in the end is what it is. I know a lot of us got stuck on Margit, but Margit was, it was a pretty tough boss fight, but it was still pretty fun as well. But yeah, ultimately you'll find bosses left and right. I mean, I found like so many dragons that I just ran from on the field because I was under leveled. So you will have to keep that in mind, as there are enemies that you feel that you can take on because they're around your level. But then if you go to a certain east side of the region, aka Kaled, then yeah, you're gonna get swamped. Those monsters are gruesome and brutal. But yeah, Elden Ring, you're gonna get lost, but it's all about discovery and exploration. Like I said, it's basically an open world Souls game. I would like to say that this game is Dark Souls 4, which I don't know why they didn't really title it that, but Elden Ring, I feel like it served its purpose. I feel like the development time is worth it. I honestly feel like this might end up being 2022 Game of the Year. It's basically all the Souls games combined, just open world. There's not even any DLC out for it yet, which I feel like the game doesn't even need DLC. The environments are varied. You have your desert looking region, your snowy looking region. You have some of the most beautiful cities I've seen in the Souls game as well. From Software knows how to develop cities, even though they are brutal. A lot of these enemies are brutal. You have several different enemy varieties to face as well. There are around 6 or so endings in the game as well. I've only completed my first playthrough. That was like a little over 100 hours, and I'm about to complete my second playthrough, and then I'm going to grind a bit and then start New Game Plus soon. I just did my first playthrough as a melee build, and then my second playthrough as a sorceress build. But yeah, I'm enjoying the title. I'm still playing it to this day. Meant to say that this game came out this year, obviously, for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and PC, and I recommend it, like, regardless. In the end, I will put this game in front of Dark Souls 1 as an S tier title. And I feel like this is the ranking that I'm going to go with. This looks pretty legit to me. I know there are probably going to be a lot of comments or opinions about this, but I feel like this looks a bit legit. So, yeah, just let me know what you guys think. Other than that, hope you guys take care.